Yeah, I was not including internship and master thesis. I was with the company for 3 years in an R&D project manager role, and then I was at the point where I had three options, and step on an airplane with a one-way ticket, 4,000 miles away.
Yes.
Fundamentally different choice, right? Kind of now looking back, certainly higher risk, higher reward.
Yes. Yeah.
On the long run, absolutely beneficial, right? Looking at kind of the long, yeah, I mean, it's maybe hard to boil it down to just, do that one thing right, and then everything will be on autopilot. It's if I try to stick to the theme of your podcast series, right? Is don't get stuck somewhere, don't get.
This is the Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show, where we are going to invite industry leaders to talk about their journeys and also technologies of tomorrow, in an effort to break some of the biases that might have formed around this energy industry. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're happy and healthy. I'm Anand Jha, and you are listening to the Oil and Gas Breaking the Bias podcast. You are listening to the mini-series on the journeys of leaders who have made big in this energy industry while breaking many of the biases around them. And I'm very happy today because I will be joined by my friend and colleague, Michael Basler, who is the Senior Vice President at ABB System Drives at ABB USA. I know Michael from last 3 years, and during this period, I came to know about his capabilities and how he had changed the game for ABB and for my division where I work for. He had a long journey. He worked as a product manager and also worked as R&D manager, and finally leading system drive business in the US. What interests me about him, like how he came to US and tripled the business where we are. So let's listen to his story, learn from him, and looking forward to our conversation today. So welcome, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, and thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
No, thank you so much, Michael, for joining me. We were planning for this session for a long time, and finally we are having this conversation.
Yeah, it took us a while to align our calendars, but glad.
Definitely. And you and I spoke about the challenges ABB had in US and also for the division that you are representing. We can talk about all those things. But before we go deep into all the conversation, all the learnings you had, I will ask you to walk us through your professional and personal journey, which help you to reach wherever you are today. So we can all learn from it.
Yeah, I'm very happy to do that. Right. So I have on a high level, it sounds very boring because my whole professional career I spent with the same company and more or less in the same business. Right. So from that perspective, it could sound rather straightforward. But then if you go a little bit into the details, there's been a couple of changes along the way. Right. So I joined ABB straight out of college as an intern, actually. I graduated from ETH, Federal Technical Institute in Switzerland, with a master's degree in power electronics. And with that type of education specialization, ABB is your number one potential future employee on the list. We have been for a long time one of the most sought after employers amongst engineering, specifically electrical engineering students in Switzerland. I was no exception. I walked or stumbled into a career fair where ABB had a big booth, and I started to talk almost coincidentally to Peter Yurt, who was at that point the R&D manager for medium voltage drives. And we started to talk about internships and some of my interests. And so I joined as an intern. I joined R&D for medium voltage drives. I did a 6-month internship. Then already during that time, I was fairly far along in my studies. We talked about doing a master thesis as well at ABB. This is something that both ABB and ETH are very supportive of, having that close connection of private industry and the academic world. So I did a master thesis and then joined an R&D program for a new medium voltage drives development. So that was my starting point, fairly technical background. And we did this for a couple of years, about 3 years. And then I had an opportunity to move internationally. We were at that point, or we had initial plans on how to expand our footprint in North America. We were focused more on sales and project execution. We wanted to expand our footprint with local development, local operations. So I had the opportunity to join the team here, which I gladly took that leap of faith, and 28-year-old moved internationally from Switzerland to the US. I think I was probably fluent in English, talking about stuff at work, but everything around that was still very much a kind of an ongoing kind of learning experience. And even to this day, I'm still working on my Midwestern accent as well, a bit of a work in progress. But I moved to Milwaukee, or into the Milwaukee area, where we have our factory in New Berlin, one of the suburbs. And that was a very different environment, right? I came from a large organization in Switzerland, where we had a fairly high level of maturity, a lot of know-how, a lot of existing experience that is all right there, into an organization that is very much being still built and developed. So there was a lot more dynamic, a lot more chaos, if you want to call it that. And of course, the team that at that point we were still building more or less from scratch, from the ground up. So very different environment, very different mandate, and an overall, an interesting change. There's certainly noticeable. For sure, one thing that is very different, coming from more like a large back-end organization into a more front-end, more customer-focused environment, is you are much more exposed. You are much closer to our customers.
Yes, you're right.
And that's something that I've enjoyed, even as technically being the quote unquote R&D guy.
But,
I was
but
running.
it can be scary as well, like coming from the back end to the front end,
Yeah, it is, right? Because you're used to, or I mean, scary is maybe a strong term, but you're used to getting everything is filtered, right? If you're working in a technical back-end organization, everything is filtered through sales and sales support or product management, and you're always N+1 removed from a customer. Yes. Right? You're working through a local sales organization, and everything is a little filtered. And now you're there, and you're hearing it firsthand. And that's something that can be scary, right? Because you're hearing a lot of good things, you're hearing a lot of bad things, but ultimately you get a firsthand experience to see how are our customers using our equipment? What are their pain points? What are they trying to solve? How can we help them? What in the end is important? What is relevant? A lot of these things have helped me personally to kind of complement a very technical background.
Yes.
With a lot more kind of that firsthand commercial experience, and that ultimately was a bit outside the comfort zone, but I've liked it, right? And I did it in whatever spare time that I had. I tried to get out, joining our sales teams, our sales guys, getting on customer calls, getting in front of customers, and it was a good kind of win-win-win situation, because from a sales perspective, now you have your answer guy right there at the table, and you can address a lot of the more technical topics that otherwise you would take notes and go back. It was hopefully as well beneficial for our customers, because it sped up a lot of these technical clarification discussions. And then, like I said, for me, right, great development opportunity to get out and then really learn a lot of these things firsthand.
I think really interesting journey, and a few things I like to highlight for our listeners. Coming to unknowns, and before this call, we were talking about, like, you had many unknowns, and you made a decision with your gut, and some of them worked, some of them didn't, But here I like to say, coming from R&D background, coming from the very technical background, changing the country, changing to the place where ABB is not successful, and coming in that kind of environment and changing the game, and that needs lots of courage, that needs lots of efforts to make that kind of decision. And when we talk about breaking the bias, I think that's one of the things. Sometimes we have a bias by ourselves, like what can I do, what can I not do, based on our past experience. But here, like, I will go back to your decision, changing the country, changing to this role. Like, what encouraged you more, at that time? Because as I said, like, you were not that long with ABB, correct? Those were your early days.
Yeah, I was not including internship and master thesis. I was with the company for 3 years in an R&D project manager role. And then I was at the point where I had three options. We were a bit at the somewhat of a conclusion of the first step of this lead development. And I had the option to continue essentially what I'm doing, right? Stay on this R&D project management type track. I had the option to take over a team leader position of an existing team back then, or I had the option to take on the role with this newly formed team in the US. And comparing these three choices, they are fairly different, right? The first two are your safe bets, right? Keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, an easy choice always.
Yeah.
Stepping into a slightly different mandate, you have new elements, line management responsibilities, things like this. Exciting for sure, but still fairly comfortable environment. Or then the other thing, which is completely different, right? So pack up your things, put all your belongings in a shipping container, and step on an airplane with a one-way ticket, 4,000 miles away.
Yes.
Fundamentally different choice, right? Kind of now looking back, certainly higher risk, higher reward.
Yes. Yeah.
On the long run, absolutely beneficial, right? Looking at kind of the long-term career development opportunity is to step out of your comfort zone. Of course, being much more exposed, taking on something that has a much higher level of ambiguity. A lot of things are not defined. You don't know, right? All that you're signing up for. So it is a bit of a leap of faith. And yeah, you're throwing yourself out there and you need to perform, or you need to do or work to the best of your abilities.
And you challenge yourself. Like that's the thing. You challenge yourself. Either you said like you had a two option where you were very comfortable. Either you can go into that direction, but you have decided to challenge yourself. And it also reminds me of two things. Like I always say, don't tie yourself with the geography. Like don't tie yourself with any city, town. Like sometimes I have seen people, they get very emotional. I have born here. I don't want to move from this place. That limits your opportunities. And also don't tie yourself to one kind of job. That's what I have seen. I have changed job roles, maybe not the company that much, but I have changed roles after a few years, and also changed from service to commissioning to business development, to global sales management. But that also helps me to find new challenge. And when you find new challenge, that encourage you to do it better, So that's what I'm listening, Michael. You have done, and now we have success story, and the one you have done. But like everybody can learn from it. Moving forward, like this is energy show. This is chemical oil and gas show. So I have to ask you some question. In this long journey, like in different roles, either product management, R&D manager, or taking care of the factory in Poland, and now you're leading sales business and in what changes you have seen across energy industry or process industry, and what we can learn from it? How if somebody is looking to make a career or like looking to make it big in this industry, what they can learn from it and how they can be better prepared?
Yeah, I mean, I got in first exposed to a lot of this, what you could broadly call as heavy industry, right? A lot of it, what we see in the energy sector today, other process industries like metals, mining, pulp and paper. At first glance, I was impressed by the sheer a lot of these applications, right? They're coming again from an academic background, and you're used to fairly small scale type of applications, power electronics, power conversion. You're not dealing in the megawatt range in a lab at your university. And then I came out and to join the ABB drives business, and you're dealing with megawatts, right? So suddenly a step up in power, even though what we're dealing with then in that we still consider it low power. It is in comparison, right? Compared to some of the fairly large-scale gas compression applications that we see in the energy sector for 20, 30, 40,000 horsepower.
And that's become a new normal these days.
Very, very massive, exactly, very massive scale, right? And the type of electrification of what we see, where there is almost a bit of that even very high power, medium voltage drives get to some extent commoditized, right? It's obviously not completely off the shelf. There is a lot of engineering that goes alongside of any of these applications, but it becomes a lot more, I should say, accessible. And the way we can deploy this technology or general electrification to a number of different is certainly impressive to see, and something that I've seen in many different cases along my career, whether it's again out from an R&D back-end perspective. Again, my time after moving back to Switzerland for a time, looking at this more globally through a product management lens, or then you've mentioned it as well, right? Later on through operations management, from the couple of years I spent at a factory in Poland, or now, of course, back in a large market. Something that I believe has stayed consistent over that time is that I see electrification as a big driver in all of the heavy industries, energy, process industry. We've seen it with general energy efficiency. That has always been and now more recently, we see it as a trend as well to become overall more efficient, looking at any process in any given operations, looking at ways how to become more energy and more carbon efficient in a lot of different applications. One thing that a lot of these heavy industries have in common is that we don't see the demand for these type of industrial products to go down. Right. Yes. I think that's very clear, whether it's through population growth or urbanization or a general higher standard of living, and then kind of the correlated growth in economic output. Very clear that we will remain dependent for various different products that come out of different industries, whether it's oil and gas or a broader energy sector or metals or mining or you name it, right? So all that demand is not going to go down, but at the same time, industrial sector in general will need to find ways how to become more energy and more carbon efficient.
Yes.
Compared to other sectors where if you take transportation or power generation, where there is at least a path how carbon intensive, how to reduce overall carbon emissions, that path today does not yet exist for the industrial sector. And I think there, with different electrification technology, whether it's drives or motors or other means, that is something that I see as a very clear trend that has been very prominent, and I think will remain a driver in the industry. Yeah.
You have already highlighted this industry is going through transition. One important thing you highlighted, Michael. This industry is not going away. Like there always a perception that has created there's no future for heavy industries. But we have seen, we are listening this thing from last many decades. So this industry has survived, but only thing, there will be new application, there will be new requirements, but this industry will continue. And if you're looking to make a career in this industry or trying to sell to this industry, I think you are at the right place, because this industry will survive for long, and I will say it will thrive for many decades to come. On this topic, I was having discussion with somebody else, Michael, when you talk about the career, is there anything you like to mention from ABB's behalf? Is there any program from ABB that you like to share with our listeners, if they're looking to make a career in this industry?
Yeah, I think in general, the demand for skilled labor or many professional jobs will only go up. We see it in general growth of our sector. If you look at how we have developed as a global division over recent years, and then more specifically what we're doing in the US, we are far outgrowing general market growth, right? So that gives you an indication for the type of investments that we're doing, the type of how we want to develop our workforce, our manufacturing footprint, investments we're making in our portfolio. And a lot of this is directly linked to how we can develop our teams, the type of talent that we can get into the organization. It's absolutely make or break based on how we can build the different teams. And there's the demand is not gonna go away, right?
Definitely,
I think it's quite deep.
Definitely. So you have listened to Michael, ABB in general, building a workforce for future. There are lots of requirements for good talent across different ABB function, and also in US. But at the same time, I won't encourage you to reach out to Michael and sending him an email for job application. So please don't do it. But instead, I will encourage, go on ABB website and you will find lots of jobs are posting there, because there's always a demand for good skilled worker, either in there are different functions from sales to operation to financing, wherever you are, there are always opportunity. So with that, just switching back to where we have started our discussion, we talked about your journey. But one thing I like to ask you, if you have to relive your journey, what changes you might have make, or what changes would you make, if you're given a chance to relive your journey?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't dwell too much on the what if type of scenarios, right? I don't. That's not what keeps me up at night. Again, one thing that is though, I think a bit of how should I say? At some point, you might get to a point in your career where suddenly an opportunity comes up, and you have to be able to make a decision relatively quickly. Right. I've mentioned my example from back in 15 years ago now, or close to, is now an opportunity opens up, and now you have to make potential life-changing decisions, right, within what feels like overnight, right? But maybe quite literally. In reality, you probably have a couple days. And what that means is you need to have some form of kind of an outline in your mind as far as what are you prepared to do, right? Again, a global mobility element is maybe one topic that, if you are presented with the opportunity to move to country XYZ, are you fundamentally prepared to make that step? And that's something, of course, for everyone individually, but then depending on your personal situation, it may not be a decision that you make for yourself. It might be a decision that you make together with your family, with other people in your life.
Yes.
And that takes a level of conversations that probably should be held, or anyone should do not at the point where now I need to make my decision in 24 hours. So that's one thing that I can recall a couple times in my both professional and personal life, usually again connected with the type of international relocations. It's good to have at least a kind of a mental framework in place as far as am I in principle ready to take a certain step, or if yes, then what are my guardrails? What are my boundary conditions as far as what I'm prepared to jump on something? Because if you wanna get this all done within a couple days, that's even mentally a fairly taxing process where it could be maybe challenging to then come to a decision within a short time frame.
Makes sense. But I liked also going back to our conversation before this recording started. The what if scenarios, sometimes we go into over analysis, and we go into those what if scenarios. We try to we try to think and discuss everything, with sometimes with yourself and sometimes with people around you, and we ask question to people around us, what do you think, and sometimes it's not helping because that other person does not see the complete picture. He or she doesn't know what you're looking for, So it's good to ask question, but also you have to keep in mind to what extent, Otherwise you go in that loop and you might not come out of that loop, because you won't able to get even you won't able to get enough. So I like what you said, Michael. Sometimes it's good to go into a what if scenario, but at the sometimes you have to decide when you should not go into that what if scenarios. Otherwise you can go into that loop forever. Interesting, and I have to learn from it. Yes, as I said, I have to learn from it, definitely. Last not the least, one thing again I want to ask you, in this journey, in this career, whatever you have achieved, if I will ask you to make one key suggestion for our listeners to getting out of the biases they might have created now, so what would be that one key suggestion that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe hard to boil it down to just do that one thing right, and then everything will be on autopilot. It's if I try to stick to the theme of your podcast series, right? Is don't get stuck somewhere, don't get pigeonholed, don't feel like, oh, I've done a certain role in a certain organization and this is it, and now this is my glass ceiling, and everything else will be a step that's maybe beyond my whether it's perceived capabilities or comfort zone or whatever it is, right? So find ways to challenge yourself, and also make maybe a couple daring steps, make a couple of lateral moves, right? Move from one function to another, even if you think that How can I get from operations into sales? How can I get from R&D into product management? How can I, in many cases you'll find that you'll get support.
Yes.
If you articulate a clear ambition and a clear vision and say, hey, look, here's what I would like to do. Now, can you help me get that there, or at least point me in the right direction and help me with a couple steps along the way? You'll typically find that there is a network, or that you can mobilize a network for people that can support you along the way.
Yes. Yes, I think you made a really good point. Sometimes it's very easy to say, like nobody is understanding what I want to do. Nobody is supporting me. Like it's very easy to go in that victim mode, and we have seen many people around us to go in that victim mode. But as you mentioned, like if you're clear about your own vision, where you want to go, you will find people around you to support people stopping you or pulling your leg. And there are many examples. Like you have that example, Michael, and I can speak for myself. I always found people more supportive around me than just pulling my leg. But for that, you have to start that process. You have to put a clear vision of where you want to go. And that's you made a really good point. I think it all starts from yourself, your personal initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, as far as creating that vision, stay curious, right? Whatever you do, right? Start to look kind of beyond what's in the realm of your immediate vicinity, as far as what you understand, and especially in fields like in energy industry, where there is a lot of preformed opinions. Right, go out and try to learn about what's out there. Right, whether it's being active in a new segment, working in a new field, jumping in a new role.
Definitely,
make sure you get information and see how you can make as much of an informed decision of even just figuring out what your interests are and what you can contribute to any given field.
Makes sense.
Even start with that. Right.
Makes sense, and lots of information is free of cost these days. Like lots of really good information, just like this podcast, which is.
I was just going to say, right? Listen to Anand's podcast, right? Start
definitely, there. Definitely. So lots of information is available, and also I have seen if you reach out to somebody like now there are lots of platforms like LinkedIn, YouTube, Insta, like wherever you are active, like you can easily reach out to the person to discuss where you want to grow, and that person, most of the time I've seen people are very supportive in that case, if you have a right topic to discuss. So with that, we can talk hours and hours, and that's what we do. but we have to stop. And I really enjoyed all the conversation, Michael. And as I said before, we're planning to have this session for a long time, but I'm really glad to have a conversation with you, and I always get inspired, like how you came to this country, took this challenge, tripled the business, and also motivated people around you. It's not just about one-man army, but I could also say I talked to the people who report to you, the co-workers who work with you. Like they all have positive feedback about you. And I think that's a true leader. It's not about just achieving the target, but also how you can motivate people around you. And you have done, and I think that's a big difference that you have made.
Yeah, it's always whatever you want to accomplish, right? It's always the people that you can rally around you and motivate you to work towards a common cause, right? Whatever you do, it's make or break as far as how you can motivate others and how you can look out for other people.
Yes, sir.
Independent on what you do, right? Whether you're in certain leadership roles or as an individual contributor, or that's something that's quite critical for sure.
I know, sir. So with that, I will sign off for this week. I will meet you again next week. Have a great day. Keep listening. The Oil and Gas Breaking the Bias podcast.